Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the fourth community meeting for the Bcyf Community Center site study. And we have a group of folks I'd like to introduce to you all. We can go out to the next slide deck. Before we introduce our team, we'd like to just share quickly with the agenda. Once we've had an opportunity to share our team who's with us and who's worked on this project and their roles, we will have, we'll share the project, Bcyf goals and objectives, the process and schedule for the study, and some information and progress along the survey, the building program survey. They'll present the UTL, our consultant team is going to present on some site identification and some test bits, and then we'll wrap up with some questions. On to the next slide, please. So first, I want to acknowledge our Community Advisory Committee, and sure if there's a way they can raise their hand. Those that are with us, they should be on the panel. So thank all of those residents that and stakeholders that are part of this community advisory committee that have been with us to help engage and ensure that all the voices across Dorchester are heard. They've helped in getting feedback, sharing the survey, and they have been that consistent consistent voice and present residents' voice throughout the process. So they'll continue with us through the end of this process or this part of the study. And then you'll see that there are this is just part one of a longer process. So we also have our Bcyf team. Myself, I'm Marta Rivera, I'm the interim commissioner of Bcyf. And I will quickly introduce my team. We have, I won't take up too much time, but because I'm sure I'll miss someone, but we have staff from our sites that are in Dorchester, the administrative coordinators, Jill LaMonica, Joy DePina, she's Hector Alvarez, Troy, is Troy on here? I'm trying to see if they're on here, Troy Smith. I feel like I'm gonna miss someone. Our public information manager, Sandy Holden, facilities manager, Pat McDonough. Our director of operations is not with us today, Eddie McGuire. He's usually on these calls as well. And forgive me if I have missed anyone from our team. Hopefully not. Oh, and there is, we have another Dorchester site, the Grove Hall Senior Center. The administrative coordinator there is Eddie Pomares. I don't see her on, but also usually on these calls. And from Public Facilities Department, for that team, I'm going to turn it over to Alistair, my colleague Alistair, to introduce those folks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name's Alistair Lux. I work for the Public Facilities Department, and we're managing this study on behalf of Bcyf. And I'm joined tonight by a few of my colleagues. Carrie Griffin, who's our director, is here. Niall Murphy, who's our chief of staff, and Evan Brinkman, who's our assistant director for design, are all on the call tonight. So thank you for coming along.
Thank you. And from the UTL architectural firm, sorry, did you already introduce UTL? I was looking at George. Distracted, sorry. Our consultant team is UTL, and their job is to analyze the data. They do the test bits, develop, analyze the surveys, and wrap it all nice in a package and present the final report. And I didn't want to forget my colleague in the Office of Neighborhood Services, George. He's the liaison for Dorchester, who's also on the call. And do we have any? Hi, George. Have any other of our colleagues from other departments that I've missed, George?
I'm not sure they're on with us tonight, but yeah, my team is also made up of, the Dorchester team is made of Denise Dos Santos for Mid Dorchester in the Cape Verdean community, Kevin Tran for Fields Corner in the Vietnamese community, and also Dante Peoples, who covers Lower Dorchester, part of Lower Dorchester and Mattapan. So I want to shout them out.
Thank you. And did I speak that correct? So do we have Rep Malia on the call. Is that correct? Okay, if someone could just check, make sure that if Rep. Malia is on the call, do we just acknowledge that or add
I
her?
see her name listed as an attendee, Liz Malia.
So Representative Malia, you should be able to unmute yourself if you accept being made a panelist.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So the study goals are, we want to establish the different types of uses and activities that the community would like to see in the center. We want to identify the different locations and potential sites. And we want to attempt or do what's called a test fit to make sure it's a three-dimensional way of taking a look at the potential sites to see if there is a fit. I went through that quickly. And then this is part of the first step in the process. So this is where we currently have BCYF facilities. The takeaway from this is essentially that all of the BCYF facilities or BCYF community centers currently in the Dorchester community are school-based sites. There's the BCYF Marshall, Holland Senior Center that's located at Burke High School, the Perkins and the Leahy Holleran, and the Gallivan that is technically Mattapan, but they're all, the Gallivan is in Mattapan as a standalone, but again, all of the other ones that are in Dorchester are in schools. And finally, the goals and objectives. We ultimately want to identify standalone facilities to ensure that we are optimizing the use of our staff and resources. Being at a BPS limits the hours and space access. So it creates, again, more opportunity for programming, access to space, and better use of our staff resources and other resources. We want the flexibility that a standalone site allows and the ability to serve more diverse users. Next slide, and I'll pass it over to Alistair.
Thank you, Marta. So this schedule is a schedule of the study process, and it shows that we started in October of last year, and currently we're nearing the end of our study. This is the fourth community meeting we've held, and we're going to be kind of reviewing everything we've accomplished so far in the study and talk a little bit about next steps. And the final report will be issued and made available to the public towards the end of May. So after this meeting tonight, we'll be wrapping up some of our community feedback gathering and assembling a lot of the data that we've gathered throughout the study process. Next slide, please. And this schedule is zooming out to look at the bigger, broader picture of where the study fits into the larger project of, locating, building, designing and building a new community center. So as you can see, we're still, even though we're nearing the end of our study process, we're still very much at the beginning of the overall process. And as the people icons indicate, we've had several opportunities for community input throughout our study, and there will be several more opportunities for community input and participation as we move into the design phase, which is upcoming after some budgeting and possibly land acquisition. And I think I'll pass it on to Brett Benson from UTL now to talk a little bit more about what we've accomplished so far in the study.
Thanks, Alistair. So I just want to start by briefly reviewing the 3 community meetings that we've had to date. So in our first meeting, we focused on establishing the types of uses and activities that community members would like to see in a BCYF center in Dorchester. We conducted a Zoom poll and launched an online survey to solicit feedback from the community. We also outlined the process of identifying potential sites for a new community center in Dorchester, and we published the demographic data online. In our second meeting, we presented initial results from the online survey, and we reviewed how it informed the sets of uses and activities that would happen in a Dorchester community center. We developed an ideal building size from this feedback, which in turn identified a minimum site size to fit this building. And we also reviewed some of the attributes that would help us evaluate sites, such as the timeline for acquisition or adjacency to other city services, such as parks. We also launched the online mapping tool to gather community input on potential sites. And in our third meeting, we reviewed ongoing results from the survey and mapping tool. We showed a map that included nearly 50 private and publicly owned sites all across Dorchester that we identified as potentially suitable for a new community center. And we selected 5 publicly owned sites to test fit how a community center could be planned on a specific site. And next, I want to review the results of our survey focused on program, which are the types of activities and uses that would be in a new community center. So we received over 335 responses to the survey from people all across Dorchester and of all ages. This has been a great response, and we're very grateful to all who participated and encouraged their friends and neighbors to participate as well. The survey is going to remain open until Friday, April 22nd, so please continue to encourage everyone you know to fill it out. And to review, we presented a list of programs that happen inside BCYF centers all across the city, arranged from the most common at the top to the least common at the bottom. These programs can be grouped into 4 broad categories: community and education, arts, fitness and sports, and outdoor spaces. And the feedback in these meetings and the survey results identified priorities in each program categories, which guided us in developing the size and the distribution of each activity within the overall building. The survey also included a form for community members to suggest their own ideas for activities that could happen inside the building. These ideas have guided us in developing the details of specific spaces in the building and will be included in the final report. And just to take one example, the idea to have cooking classes has guided us to include a community kitchen with teaching stations in the building program. The size and adjacency of each program or use is shown in this drawing as a set of 3D building blocks, each grouped into the categories of spaces that we reviewed earlier. This gives us a total building size of approximately 57,000 square feet with an ideal lot size of 47,000 square feet. So next, I want to review our process of identifying potential sites all across Dorchester for a new community center. We have an online mapping tool to help the community identify specific sites in Dorchester. This allows you to drop pins on a map and add a text description for where you would like to see a new community center. And this tool will also be open until April 22nd, so please encourage your friends and neighbors to use it. And the tool has been very valuable in gathering input from community members, some of which is highlighted here. You can see that we receive comments broadly across Dorchester, and we'll include all of the comments in our final report. And using the input we received in these community meetings, plus the data gathered with the mapping tool, and working with our consultant team, we've identified nearly 50 sites all across Dorchester that are potentially suitable for a new community center. And this map shows the inventory of sites we have gathered so far. The green color pins are publicly owned, either City of Boston or Massachusetts. The red pins are privately owned, and we're not identifying the details of these sites so far, since the city has not yet had the opportunity to engage with any private landowners. And after assembling the inventory of potential sites, we moved forward with a test fit of the community center on specific sites. So we started with a definition of a test fit, which I'll review again tonight. And that is that a test fit is a 3-dimensional test of the community center uses and activities on a particular site. And I want to follow that up with an important disclaimer that this is a test and only a test. It's not an actual design or a proposal for a site. At this stage, we're simply arranging Lego blocks on a site to see how things could fit together. We started with lots that are owned by the City of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the goal of these tests is to show how different sites impact the arrangement of uses and activities. We're still cataloging sites, including privately owned sites, and we're open to recommendations from the community. And we do not intend to rank or recommend particular sites in this study. That will be left to future review once the study is complete. We selected 5 sites, all publicly owned, to test a new community center. These sites all benefit from being located near existing public services, be it schools, parks, libraries, or public transit. And we selected this initial group of sites because they offered a wide range of existing conditions. Some had more land and the community center could be low and more spread out, while others had less land and the community center had to be taller and stacked onto multiple floors. And the 5 sites we test fit are shown on this slide. Each site comes with its pros and cons. For example, the Frederick Middle School site is adjacent to a playground and athletic fields, but its location on a hillside could result in planning constraints and loss of existing park space. The 40 to 48 Geneva lot is located next to the Grove Hall Library and other city services, but it lacks access to green space and athletics fields. The Town Field site is larger than the other, so it results in a single-story building that would be highly accessible, but it also requires a reconfiguration of the baseball field and bleachers. And the Victory Road site was also one of the larger sites, and the building could act as a buffer to the neighborhood from the Red Line train tracks, but it also requires a lot of site adjustments and is located in the future floodplain when taking sea level rise into account. And the Divine Rink site is directly adjacent to the new renovated Garvey Playground. So it has access to state-of-the-art athletics fields and playgrounds without taking away park space like some of the other options. But it's also located in the future floodplain and has a smaller footprint, which requires it to be a multi-story building. So I want to conclude tonight by reviewing our overall process for the site study, and then hand it back to Alistair to review some next steps. And the process can be categorized into 3 main parts: research, analysis, and the final report. In the research phase, we mapped existing BCYF sites, similar service providers such as the Boys and Girls Clubs in the Y, and demographic data throughout Dorchester. We developed the ideal size of a community center using feedback in these meetings and through the survey, which allowed us to determine the minimum size of a suitable site. We scanned all of Dorchester for suitable sites, both publicly and privately owned, for a new community center. And we gathered feedback on potential sites at community meetings from CAC members and through the online mapping tool. In the analysis phase, we created a map of all potential sites and documented the pros and cons of each. We documented all of the community and CAC feedback related to the sites, and we created community center test fits on a range of 5 publicly owned sites to get a sense of how different sites would influence the planning of a building. And we're about to embark on creating the final report, which will include all of the information and feedback relating to the site study. And once it's complete, the data and feedback included in the final report can be used by city officials to determine which sites are the most viable for a standalone community center and which sites may require more study. And the final report can be used to further study a phased approach to building multiple standalone community centers throughout Dorchester. And with that, I want to hand it over to Alistair to talk a little bit more about next steps.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for that overview. I just wanted to return to this slide one more time before we open it up to question and answers. Just to remind everybody that although it seems like we're moving quite slowly throughout this study process, what we've been doing during this phase is gathering lots of useful information that will then be used to make important decisions in the subsequent phases moving forward. And I also wanted to remind everyone that not only will the community feedback that we've gathered be a part of that decision-making process moving forward, there will be additional opportunities in subsequent phases for additional community feedback and for the community members to help inform and guide the decision-making process. So once again, that's during the design phase. There will be a community process very similar to the one that we're in right now. There'll be community meetings, opportunities for feedback, and that feedback can then be wrapped into the design, and it will help to inform a better design for the community centers that move forward. So just thank you once again for all your valuable feedback. And I think we are ready to start the Q&A process. If Brett, would you mind just reminding everyone what the protocols are for asking questions or making comments?
Absolutely. So we have a number of ways for people to participate. If you feel comfortable asking your question over Zoom, feel free to raise your hand and we'll be able to allow you to mute and unmute yourself. We'll call on you to do so. If you'd rather pose your question, feel free to do it in the chat or through the Q&A, and we will be scanning both of those areas to answer questions as well. And with that, I just want to reiterate Alistair's comments and Marta's, which is to say thank you so much to all of the community members, all of the CAC members for your very valuable input, taking time out of your busy lives to give us input on that. It's been extremely valuable and has really shaped this process and will shape the final report. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. Okay, so it looks like Kyra Fox, you're able to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just had a few questions. I am familiar with the process, so I was more involved earlier on when you guys first started looking for a Dorchester site for the community center, but I just wanted to I will go online and do the survey as well, but I just think that, and I'm not sure. Hi, Marta. I'm not sure if how much equity kind of takes a place in this, but I think that the Grove Hall area, Dorchester definitely is in need of a new community center. And when you look at the top 5 examples that were used for tonight, I know that those are not the only 5 examples, but you want to definitely take into accountability walkability. A lot of those spaces have been lucky enough to receive some recent resources, as far as, like you said, the newer fields, and they have like the hockey rink and things like that, while other areas are definitely needing some additional resources. And I think that this community center will be a great benefit to those areas. So I just wanted to kind of put that into place, and I will go online and leave my commentary there as well. That's all.
Thank you so much for your comment. I really appreciate that. One thing I'll mention is in the final report, every site will have a much longer list of pros and cons that go with it. Walkability is going to be a really key component of that. And so we'll be sure to take your comments into account. And thanks so much. Yes, please do fill out the survey. Every comment will be reviewed and included in the final report. Linda Freeman, it looks like you're next. I'll allow you to unmute yourself here.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'll make it brief and echo the same as Kyra has indicated. Grove Hall has been without the support and resources that's much needed for our youth and the families there due to its density in population. I do remember the bubble at one point. I remember leaks in the bubble, not much heat, but these kids loved it. They were happy there. And now it's time for Grove Hall to have that youth center there for all the families and the children to enjoy and to excel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda, for your comment. Crystal Watler, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Crystal, go ahead if you are able to unmute yourself.
Crystal, there's a.
Oh, there you go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
I just had a question on, and I heard the commentary, and I just wanted clarity on the importance of green space in the selection process. only because it was one of the cons with reference to the Grove Hall site. And so I'm sort of, I just like some clarity if you don't mind.
Marta, I don't know if you want to give some more detail into having access to athletic fields, but that is one theme that came up in the process of our survey and some of our other meetings, is being able to have a nearby outdoor space for the BCYF Center to take advantage of. There are a number of indoor opportunities in these community centers, but having outdoor space like athletics fields is very valuable as well.
Is that what you're referring to, Crystal? Because that's what we were talking about, like the downside, or that we didn't have identified spaces with enough space to make outdoor space available. I guess I'm trying to hit at what Crystal was asking.
Right, because when they said green space, my head kind of went to grass, sort of, sort of a, not so much recreation, meaning that the young people would be running on it, but more of just greenery.
Passive green space is what you're referring to, not recreational, right?
Exactly. So my head did not go towards the recreational. That's why I asked for clarity. I'm like, okay, fine. What am I thinking here?
Yeah. No, we weren't saying green space is bad. No, do not say BCYF said green space is bad, nor UTO. So what Brett was referring to is the recreational outdoor spaces, as he said. And then because there were more, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, in every case it had to do with fields versus passive parks. I don't recall any of them. Yeah, so it's all, so maybe the language that we use on that should be clarified.
That's right. No, yeah, you're right. I think I should
Playgrounds,
clarify
play
that.
spaces, I mean, everything, splash parks, outdoor football, soccer, basketball fields, whatever. It was all recreational.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if, Commissioner Woods were on this call, I would never want him to hear we said green spaces were bad. Not at all.
No. Crystal, thanks so much for your comment. So next, it looks like Andre B, you should be able to ask your question.
Hi, just a comment. I've been a long time Grove Hall resident. I grew up there. I remember the bubble days. I was a teen going to the bubble and the community center, which was there, which was great. And I remember when the Burke got renovated and then they moved the community center into the bubble and the services that got taken away. So I definitely, support Grove Hall, being that location, even though, it is just depleted of resources of anything other than after school activities, things like that. There's nothing really there. I mean, the Burke closes, it's not open. The closest thing you got is the Holland, which really isn't, for a lot of kids on the other side of Columbia Road, isn't an option.
Thank you, Andre. I'm smiling, I'm smiling and laughing at the same time, as I never thought I'd hear the word bubble and great space in the same sentence as someone that was at BCYF in 06 or so when we had the bubble. But thank you, Andre. I totally appreciate that. It was definitely a space that was highly utilized. As the person before you mentioned, leaks and all, including the makeshift heaters that we probably never should have had in that space, but it was definitely a wonderful utilized space. So thank you.
All right, next is Shondell Davis. You should be able to unmute yourself and make your comment or ask a question.
Just a quick question. I came on a little late. I apologize. I just want to know, how do you fill out the survey or evaluation? I heard somebody was asking.
Yes, so if you go to BCYF's website, there is a link right there to take the survey. And also you'll find recordings of all our past meetings and the presentations as well. And Sandy, maybe you could put that in the chat as well so people can click it during this meeting and fill out the survey. Thank you. Okay, next I see John Min at AOL.com. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, how are you? This is John Min is my email name. This is Reverend Minyard Culpepper, and I use that email John Min. That's my two sons, Jonathan and Minyard. I wanted to comment because we've looked and waited for development of a community center in Grove Hall for many years. I grew up in Grove Hall. My grandfather had a shoe store right on Washington Street across from Blair's. I worked in it when I was 15 years old. And when you think about the Grove Hall area, you think about my church is Pleasant Hill Baptist Church on Humboldt Avenue. You look at that area, the only place we could go was the Roxbury Y or the Roxbury Boys Club or the Dorchester Y. Now there's the Y at Franklin Field. But the difference in those days were we had community schools. They would open up the Burke. We played basketball in the Burke in the evening, the Holland schools, the Lee School. When you look at all the schools, they had community centers. Once they closed the community centers, they closed young folks off from having a place to gather and socialize, play basketball, checkers, learn chess, the different activities and the support services. And so there hasn't been one. We've been waiting for this to happen for years, from administration to administration to administration. I hope and pray that with this administration, we finally get the community center to put in Grove Hall. And yes, the bubble was a solution for a while, but not really a solution because it didn't have everything that I'm looking at the community center that you showed that it should have had with regard to supportive services. You know, our area is challenged in many ways, and a community center with wraparound services, I think, would be an amazing investment by the city of Boston into the Grove Hall area. The other thing I wanted to say, I know I asked a question earlier, I'm a candidate, I'm running for the state senate. One of the reasons why I'm running to the state senate is because these areas are resource deserts. We don't have resources in these areas. Where do you expect the young folks in Grove Hall, on Seaver Street, on Elm Hill, on Humboldt Ave, on Warren Street, on Blue Hill Ave, on Intervale Street, where do you expect them to go? And so I really hope and pray, and I'm going to fight like I'm going to give it my all to make sure that this community center comes to Grove Hall so the young folks can finally have a place that they can call their own. Thank you for giving me a chance to express my strong feelings about the need for that community center in Grove Hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment, Reverend Culpepper. Anthony Meeks, you should be able to make a comment or ask your question next.
I apologize. First and foremost, good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Meeks, SOAR Boston Outreach Engagement Coordinator. I apologize. I'm in the city. Formerly a street worker. I worked in the Grove Hall area since 2007. There are so many fond memories I can share with you in reference to the community center before it closed and the bubble. The bubble was the awesome place, and I agree. It wasn't something that was meant for permanent, but it was home. I can share with you guys the fact that there have been many instances where there were life and death situations whereby the bubble and the community center was the place that we went and there was safety. Had I have to run all the way down to the Holland Community Center, had I had to run a different direction or whatever, I'm not sure life would be the same right now. So I know different cases where people fled for their lives to either one of these facilities, and it was safety. For me as a city employee, it was a place I could call home for the side and do a lot of work with a lot of teenagers in that area. So many, it was fun. And I do wish, you know, that the bubble, no, excuse me, the teen center or the youth center is built in this area. This is me as a resident speaking, but also as a professional. And I'm hoping I'm not conflicting with any others. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment, Anthony. If there are others who have comments or questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you. Rachel Simmons, you should be able to ask a question or make your comment.
Yes, I would like to comment that we do need a center because once upon a time, we used to be able to go to the Harlem Community Center on Geneva Ave, but now that has been taken away since before COVID. And there's not really any resource in this area anymore, and we strongly need it. So I'm hoping we can get this community center built.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you, Rachel.
welcome.
Emmanuel Tequila, you should be able to ask your question now.
Hello, good evening, folks. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this and to speak. I've been connected to Grove Hall for over almost 30 years now. Know several generations of families that I've served and been connected to. And you know, we know all the demographics, we know all the numbers of highest youth population in the city, most densely populated neighborhood in the city, but yet some of the least amount of resources that we have in the city. And we don't want to, we believe that we're with a new administration, mayor and new administration, where we believe we're at a positive place where we feel as though folks are looking at, the city's looking at Grove Hall and sees value in the people and the residents, and that we're looking to make sure that the quality of life in the neighborhood is increased to a place where when you think of Grove Hall, you're saying those are wonderful people who are achieving a lot of things. Our goal as residents and as community members, as leaders in the neighborhood, is to make sure that a child does not have to leave, or any family does not have to leave the neighborhood, right? To be able to get just quality services and basic services for their lives. We know what the statistics are, and all the reporting is between the life expectancy between folks who live in Grove Hall and downtown Boston or Back Bay. We look at the type of resources. There's no place. There is no place to work out in Grove Hall. There's no place to lift weights in Grove Hall. When it gets cold, there's no place for seniors to go and do indoor walking, like we talk about the suburbs and malls or different places. And so we're hoping that as we think about this center, that it is really a place where the quality of life is increased for our folks, and that the city really takes a good look and sees Grove Hall as what it really is, the center of the city, right? You look at any map, it's the center of the city, and it should be seen as the heart of the city. Thank you for the time.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for your comments. Representative Malia, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I apologize for being late to this conversation tonight, but I think I have some very strong feelings that based on my experience in other parts of my district where I am near the Curtis Hall JP Center and have a large population of folks, especially at the South Street Housing Development. And also my experience has been very similar in Rosendale at the Archdale Housing Development. Having a community center nearby for support, access, safety, as was mentioned just in the last caller, a gathering spot, but also a place that's central for the community, I think is extremely important for our young people. And I think Grove Hall, when I was a rep when The bubble was still there, and I remember that it was an essential resource. And I just think that Grove Hall has had a few extra mountains to climb. And they have a large enough population that a youth center situated in Grove Hall would make, it really would be an amazing increase in the quality of life for all of our young people. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative.
Thanks so much. Born B. Kim, you should be able to ask your question next.
Born, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, my name is Born by Kim.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Actually, I go by Born by Kim Richardson. It's no problem. I'm a lifelong resident of Roxbury and Boston, and I've worked in numerous programs in different places throughout the city. Yes, Marta, you know me from Mission Possible. We worked together. You were one of, Mission Possible. That's right, Marta. So basically my question is, how can there not be a community center put in a place where you have a majority of the issues that other parts of the city have, but they're all the other parts of the city are basically have centers, that places or community centers where their residents can go. I'd echo some of the things that I heard. It doesn't make sense for community residents to have to leave their community to go to a supermarket. It wouldn't make sense for a community, for youth to have to go places outside of their community to get the services that every resident of the city should be able to have within their own district. So I'm really wondering why it's so hard for a community center to be established in Grove Hall when it's a concentrated area. When we look at the stats, all of the statistics say that we need a community center. It would cut down on violence. It would serve our elders. It would serve all of the people that are basically suffering, that were suffering pre-COVID, and now are actually, all those things have been exacerbated. So I'm wondering how the city would make it a process where there would even be a question. So I'm wondering why there even has to be a question about need, and why it's so difficult to get this done. That's my question.
It is, of course, my friend Bork kind of allied. It's so great to hear your voice, but of course you end with the hardest question of all, right? I can't speak to why it's even a question, but there is an opportunity, of course, and we want to try to move with that opportunity with as much speed as possible, because we hear the urgency in the community and we see it every day. I also wanted, for those that are joining for the first time, want to remind us that there is, someone asked a question about whether it's feasible to have more than one at this point. What we have heard on multiple meetings, on multiple calls, is that there will be at least two, and the potential for more in Dorchester. So we, on this call, we're not, you're not vying, you're not elbowing your way to the top, you're not elbowing for a community center. This isn't a fight for a community center, but I am really, I understand and I hear the urgency, but know that Dorchester is large enough that it merits not just one additional, two additional. We don't have, as I said, we don't have any standalone facilities. And so at this point we're talking about two or more. And I'll just say that because I don't want to get myself into trouble making commitments. It's not my place to commit, but I wouldn't be able to speak to, again, why it is even a question, but I can tell you that right now it is an opportunity. And that's what I hope that we can capitalize on. And with your, with all of the activation we've seen today from the residents and the passion in your stories you've shared about the bubble, I have very little doubt that this process will be expedited. I also want to respond to someone made a comment about the smallest center. I don't know, like Warren mentioned, I'm from Mission Hill. I don't know. I think the Johnson might be the smallest.
That might be.
Yeah,
It might be.
So we have Johnson, Pino. We have quite a few small sites.
Yeah.
Archdale.
Yeah, this is Pat. Pat. Yeah, actually, they're all basically cookie cutters. They're built the same way in the housing developments. The Pino, which is out by the Orient Heights community housing development. The Archdale, which is now the Menino, which is in the Archdale development. The Gallivan, which is Gallivan, and the Johnson Center, which is in Mission, Maine, are actually all similar builds. They're mainly 2/3 of the buildings, or to 3/4 of the buildings that are gymnasium, and then some locker rooms, a small office, and maybe a small community room. But in Orchard Gardens is the same way also, in the Orchard Gardens housing development. So yeah, we have 5 of them that are basically built sort of similar builds, 1-story buildings.
They're called called the Butler Buildings or something like that? It was all the same designer?
Yeah, they were all designed the same way. I mean, we actually, back in 93 to 96, we renovated them all back during the Menino administration and built them back up and reopened them. But during the Flynn into the Menino administration, I'm sorry, they started being designed during those days. So yeah, all those buildings were actually, several of those were closed, completely shuttered, and others needed major renovations at that time.
Yeah,
But they're all open now.
and we're not looking to replicate those.
Pat, you're the best.
Thank you. We're hoping.
Somebody please mute Meeks. We don't want a Pat fan club. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for the comment. It looks like Erico Correa, you're up next. Please go ahead and
by
ask
the
your
way,
question.
Erico is one of our CACs also, by the way.
Great. Okay.
Mute. Yes, good evening. Thank you for allowing me this moment. I just wanted to also comment the fact that I think our biggest issue is that with this meeting today, we started off with actually talk about different areas that has been looked at and what areas are better fit for teen center for the kids. And I believe that our biggest concern is that we want to focus on Grove Hall. I understand that there's other areas that has bigger land and better opportunities to build a better teen center, so on and so forth. But our biggest issue, again, from everybody's concerns here, is that it's been many years on the waiting list. And obviously, I live literally across the street from this parking space between Burke and Old Fields Road. I'm a homeowner at Old Fields Road, and I can tell you that I spend times watching these kids get off of Burke and just wandering around looking for places to go, things to do. And to be honest, right now, this space that we have doing nothing for the community is a perfect place to build this teen center. I know we're talking about green space, but if we look at green space right down the street from Grove Hall, there's a huge park, huge soccer field that's being used every day. Kids go there. But I think we need somewhere that is used all year round, man. And that's what is missing. We need somewhere that kids can use all year round. A park, a green space is due to the summer. And after summer is over, it's a place that other people are using to hang around. But we need an indoor place that these kids, again, to help, again, to support. And there's no better place right now than this parking lot that's just vacant for many, many years. That's all I want to say, but I think we need to start focus more on really making Grove Hall the place to get the next teen center and make it happen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Correa. And again, thank you for being on the Community Advisory Committee and continuing to lend your voice to that process.
All right, Rachel, it looks like you have another comment. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, and I agree with the comment earlier, like if you have a community and you go to your supermarket in your community, why can't you go to the community center in your community? And yes, we have other places and other resources, but due to the fact that a lot of things have shut down in our area, those places have waiting lists and a lot of people can't get into those places. I mean, it's nice to have them, but if there's no access, you know, and people are waiting forever, it doesn't help. And I mean, to have that center here, like I said, right here in Grove Hall would be great. Because once again, we don't have access to other community centers that we used to have access to, like the Holland. And now it's Up Academy. They've taken that over. And we don't have summer camps for the kids. I mean, a lot of this is tough. The summer camps are limited, and there's lots of kids that are going to be roaming around this summer with, you know, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Or get into mischief?
So I thought I had misheard that earlier. Someone mentioned that the Holland is closed. The Holland Community Center is not closed.
Well, my kids used to go there and they limited it now to just the students there. As far as summer camps and stuff like that, we don't have access. So we end up sending them, like trying to get them in places like the Kroc Center or other places like that, which a lot of times are filled quickly. So if you're not, it's like a first come, first served basis on a lot of these places.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm going to drop my, are you able to see the chat?
Yeah, I can see the chat.
Okay, I'm just going to drop my, just email me because that, the programs, BCYF programs at the Holland and any of our sites are not limited to just the schools, or limited to any, just one organization. And so wondering why they wouldn't have access. Just want to make sure that I'm clear on that one. If you could email me.
I'd say 6 months or a year before COVID, I mean, my kids used to always go there for summer and stuff. And then after certain events there, it's like, it was limited and they kept it like the after school program was now for just the school, not for kids outside of the school. And then the summer camps, they never, you know, reached back out to us. And when we reached out, they're like, no, we don't have the summer camp. So, and that was like, I'd want to say it's been 2 years since my kid's been in there, since before COVID.
Yeah, the summer camp, we can talk offline, but the summer camp might be a little different. This has to do with licensed versus unlicensed programs, but there are activities at the site. But we can certainly talk offline.
Okay.
Thanks. And it's Rachel, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But like I said, we have limited access to these other places that there are around because of, you know, volume, you know, first come, first serve. And then usually most people that have already been in the program for years get first access. And then the kids that, you know, are newer to it don't get any access because they're on a waiting list or something.
Yeah.
So it would help to have something here in Grove Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for the comment. Jayona Thomas, you should be able to ask your question.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jayon Thomas. I've been around Grove Hall like all my life, and I'm only like 17, so I know like it's not as much as other people have. But I've definitely been around to kind of see and realize how much a community center would benefit the people in community. As people have said before me, we're one of the most populated areas and we have very little resources. And, you know, getting a community center would not only help the youth get more resources and like have somewhere to kind of just hang out, but it can kind of be like a safe place for them where they can like, you know, get comfortable and be comfortable with who they are. And again, have resources that they wouldn't usually have. And maybe, you know, they would get access to opportunities that they wouldn't be able to, and they could be exposed to different things because they're not around like the same people all the time if it's open to the community. Yeah, I think it'll just like improve the community in general. I know someone earlier was saying that it'll kind of help reduce the violence in the community, and not only will it help the youth, but the seniors. Like in the winter, it's hard for them to do stuff like walking is an example that the other person used. I forget who it was, I'm sorry. But like indoor spaces for not only youth, but the community in general to have, especially for stuff like events and kind of things to bring the community together and kind of just help build the relationships in the community will be like really beneficial. And yeah.
Thank you, Jayana. Jayana, did you fill out the survey? Did you go online and fill out the survey, or you,
Yeah, I did.
somehow you did? Can you get your friends to do it? Or I mean,
Yeah,
you started off by saying I'm only 17 and not as much as others. Yours is probably one of the most powerful voices on this call. We need you and more of your friends to tell us what you'd like to see in the centers. I'm trying to get to 1,000 surveys and we're barely at 400. I know that if you tweet, use social media and all the wonderful ways you get messages out, I'm sure we can get closer. And that voice we really, really want to hear is from, we want to hear from more youth. Adults are great. Definitely want to hear the voice of the seniors, but really would love to amplify the voice of youth in the survey.
Yeah.
Can you help me that?
Yeah, I've been trying to send it around, but
yeah, are you connected with any of the organizations?
Yeah, I work with Project Right.
Mike, come on. I was like, this is like premier superstar organizer. Okay, Diana, I'm gonna have to get you on the CAC. I'm gonna need you on the CAC to help us get this out.
Jayana would be good because she's gone to Vine Street. She's searched at a number of the community center sites. She's pushing for STEM and a variety of different things. Yeah, we need to have Jayana and some of her other fellow students input as well. Thank you, Jayana.
Thank you. But the goal is really that 1,000. So the more we can get it out, I appreciate the help getting that again to as many young people to fill it out, and or your thoughts on how we could better get the input of young people. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that comment. We're getting a little bit over time and we want to be respectful of everybody's time tonight. So if you have your last questions, please raise your hand and we'll try to wrap it up in the next couple minutes. Born by Kim, you have another question. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, my question is, in these particular cases, it's interesting that the city wants to hear from youth, but the very places where we would be able to have youth, we can't have youth because we don't have a community center, right? One of the things that we also have to really look at realistically is the kind of violence that occurs. Is it possible for someone to walk from Humboldt? You know, we can get someone from Humboldt to come into that space, but for some of our youth to get from these other spaces across, certain streets into certain areas, now they're going into places where they may not be welcome. So now what you do is you create a strain on the adult because now their mother or father or someone has to come and pick them up, to take them, to bring them to and fro. It doesn't make sense for our seniors to have to travel outside of their community to get services to come back in. So the very thing that you want most, which would be the input of the youth don't even have a place where they can go, where they can even answer these things, where they can feel safe, they can feel comfortable, and they have easy access. So this even shows more over the need for a community center. And I think the other reason why there's a great need for this community center is because there's a lack of intergenerational communication from seniors to youth, and then the people in between that who are the workers, you know, the mothers and fathers who are ferrying their seniors and the youth back and forth. So the very thing that the city wants on this, the impact, the input, the voices of the youth, can only come when we have places like this. And the fact that we don't have a community center, and there's all of this conversation about we need more input, we need more input. We need more places where we can make input, and the input will be heard, and that's how we make impact. Youth are not going to go where they don't feel comfortable, and we need to create places for our youth to feel comfortable. We have to have places for our seniors to feel comfortable. That's why we need a community center. I will pledge to do some work around making sure that youth will respond. I'm working at a space on Blue Hill Ave, but I will also add this. This section of the city has been blighted, and it has continued to stay underdeveloped in certain spaces my whole life. I'm 57. I've walked past vacant lots that have been vacant lots since I've been a child, and the city has done nothing. They're doing construction everywhere else besides Grove Hall. This is the most densely packed part of Dorchester. For us to even have to have conversation around need or to show need, to me is, yeah, that was my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Born. And
Thank
so we've gathered, you know, we have introduced the staff earlier. We have several community centers that are, again, school-based sites and other parts that we've gathered some of the surveys from. So again, as much as we can get, and thank you, Born, for making that commitment to getting it out to more youth. So the more we can get it out to all stakeholders. But again, it'd be great to get that amplified and elevated as part of this survey process. I wanted to circle back again to some of the folks that said that there's a lessened or decreased access to whether it's summer camp or after school programming. I recognize, you know, having been a single parent, I have an adult daughter now, but having been a single parent and sort of shuffling my daughter from one corner of Boston to the other, how difficult it can be when you're trying to find programming, and it's not ideal when it's not in your neighborhood. However, if there isn't something in your neighborhood, we have a couple of, again, site coordinators that are on the call that have programs, after school programming, as well as summer camp programming that they are currently enlisting and enrolling and promoting. I think Joy had to jump off. Jill is still on the call. She'll drop her email on there, but you could always, you know, if you can always go online and find these folks. But Jill, if you could drop your email on there, she's always she can share some of the programming at her site. There's Leahy Holleran, there's the Holland again that is open. I don't know if Hector's on. It looks like Joy is back. Okay, Joy. And I'm missing a site. Perkins, Holland, Leahy Holleran. I think that's all the Dorchester sites. And lastly, I'll just say that again, we're over time, and I'm going to turn it back to Brett and thank everyone. Please stay engaged and continue to circulate the survey. This is just the beginning. And the reason I shared and tried to create these connections to other sites is that as much as we, again, recognize the urgency in needing this community center here now, or needing it 5 years ago when or longer when the bubble was closed, the fact is this is a process that is going to take years, and it's not going to happen. Clearly, it's not going to happen for this summer. So if you need programming, need access, please do reach out and allow us to help you find a slot for your children to ensure they have enriching and fun activities. And so with that, I'll turn it to Brett.
Thanks, Marta, and thank you again to everybody for participating. It has been great to hear all of your comments tonight and all the previous community meetings. Just want to give one more plug for the survey. We look at every single response in that survey. It does make a difference. Please participate, share it with all your friends and neighbors. And with that, we're going to say goodnight. We're 10 minutes over. Thank you again for your time tonight. And we look forward to continuing the process with everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.